artists are going to be here today sharing their badassery with all of us. And I just want to welcome you. My name is Michelle Raheja. I teach in the Department of English. And we're honored to have our guests here today, but we're also honored to have Mike and Will Madrigal here to open things up in a proper way. They're both PhD candidates in the Department of History and Ethnic Studies. We talked a little bit we talked about you already. And there are 15 Madrigals, I believe, who have graduated from UCR. So we are so grateful. So grateful to you. So they're going to start off with a prayer and some awesome bird singing, and then we'll start with the program. Thank you.
Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Madrigal, and I'm from the Kauai Reservation, and my nephew Will Madrigal, is from the Kauai Reservation. And it's an honor to be here to help open up this very special gathering. We want to remember that we're people of stories, that all of our history and culture comes to us through our stories. One of the examples that we have in the Kauai community are the Kauai bird songs, the Wikikmalyam Himtahmwe. So we will be singing a couple of those songs after our opening prayer. And my nephew Will can tell us a few words about the songs when we get to that time. But earlier we offered a little bit of smoke outside because we can't have smoke inside the building. And as part of the prayer, then I'll also offer some tobacco outside. And that's one of our traditional ways to ask for blessings and to give thanks to Creator. The Kauai people, we call our Creator Amna'a, the greatness of being Amna'a. And so we ask for the presence of Amna'a and all of the good spirits, our ancestors, to bless us, to be with us during our gathering today. Amna'a metwedetni ayawa achakwa ehma muntemal. O greatness of being, we thank you and we ask you to help us to be good to one another. Nesun Achama, our hearts are good. Achakwa ehma muntemal, help us to be good to one another always. May people everywhere in the world be at peace with one another. This is a prayer that one of the elders that I grew up with shared with me. Achakwa ehma muntemal means everyone in the world will be relate to each other in a good way. And so we know that we always need this in our families, we need this in our communities, and we need this throughout the world. Of course, we want to make sure that we do everything we can to end pain and suffering, and we do everything that we can to give goodness, support, help, love, compassion to each other. And I know those messages come through in the stories that are being shared today, and those messages are also in the songs that we'll share today. And so we say, hey, hey, ha, hey, hey, ha, hey, hey, ha, hey, hey, ha. So may it be this way, and have a beautiful program, a beautiful day, everyone, and we thank Creator for the rain as well. So we'll have a couple songs that Will can tell us something about the songs.
Yeah, Bacham, everyone. Bacham, relatives, for being here. Welcome to Kauai country. You know, we're the original Hollywood Indians. Just want to make sure you guys know that. But thank you for being here and sharing our thoughts and our prayers, and go to folks like you who are making us more seen and more visible as Native people, and me being an educator and working here and doing what I can, teaching our language and our history here at this campus, and hoping that it spreads out. And I think that we're doing parallel work. We're doing work that that our ancestors would be proud of. So thank you for being here. We'd like to honor you with some of our Wikik Malam Dakmoy, our bird songs, and hope you enjoy these songs. These are happy time songs. These are good, positive, energy generating songs. So, yeah. Emelo, ya emelo, emaye, emelo, ya emelo, emaye, emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, emaye, emelo, ya emelo, emaye. Emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, emaye. Emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, emaye. Emelo, ya emelo, emaye. Emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, emaye. Emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, emaye. Emelo, ya emelo, ya emelo, ya em. Ayo moele, ayo moele, ayo 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 moele, ayo ayo moele, ayo ayo moele, ayo moele, ayo ayo moele, ayo moele, ayo moele, ayo ayo moele, ayo ayo moele, ayo moele. Etam ya pendale en bojono, ayo ayo moele, ayo moele. Etam ya pakale en bojono, ayo ayo moele, ayo moele, ayo moele, ayo ayo moele, ayo ayo moele, ayo moele, ayo moele, ayo ayo moele, ayo.
Nestor Nachama, thank you all. All of our comments, have a beautiful day.
Thank
It's an
you.
honor.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we get started, I wanted to just thank the co-organizers of this event today, Kimberly Guerrero, who will be on the panel, and Gretchen Potter, who is the assistant to the CCNN director. And we're also very blessed to have the CCNN director, Dr. Wallace Cleaves, here. So that's exciting. And before I introduce the panelists, I also want to just, with a show of hands, how many of you have seen Spirit Rangers, Rutherford Falls, Resident Alien, Reservation Dogs? Okay, with those of you who don't have your hands up, like run and watch these shows as soon as you can. It's magical. Like, I just feel, I mean, like I'm an older person, but I feel like this is the future. Like we're in the future right now, and it's a future that many of us could not have even imagined. Like, Reservation Dogs is unimaginable to so many people, and it's, you know, because of awesome people. Our guests today, this is a reality, and it's extremely exciting. So I'm going to introduce the panelists, and then we'll show some clips from their shows, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So let's get started. So Kimberly Guerrero is a Colville tribal member and Salish Kootenai descendant, and an associate, soon to be full, professor in the theater. We're making it, we're manifesting it. Film and digital production department here at UCR. And we are so lucky to have her here. She is an amazing scholar, friend, sister, community member. It's really, really great that she's here. And I also have to say, just turn on your TV at any given time, and she's on there. Like, I have 2 teenage daughters, and we were watching The Wilds. Like, kind of embarrassed to admit that I was watching The Wilds, but she's on that. And then I was also taking one of my mandatory UCR trainings, and I think you play like a doctor, like. I was like, what? How? How are you even? You're even infiltrating our stupid UC system wide thing. I think you were just like, Yeah.
Special accommodations. Ask me about that.
Yeah, that's right. So she's an Oklahoma-born, LA-based actor, writer, producer, and director, driven by a desire to right the misrepresentation and underrepresentation of Native peoples in the contemporary storytelling mediums of film, television, and theater. A few of her notable film, television credits include Reservation Dogs. Who did she play? Yay! Rutherford Falls, Spirit Rangers, The Wilds, The Glorias, Catch the Fair One, Montana Story, Grey's Anatomy, Hidalgo, and if those of you who are old enough to remember Seinfeld showed, she played the awesome Native girlfriend to Seinfeld on the show. On stage, Kimberly was a member of Steppenwolf's original cast of the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning play August, Osage County, and appeared in Chicago, on Broadway, at the National Theatre in London, and the Sydney Theatre Company in Australia. A co-founder of the award-winning Style Horse Collective, she has co-written, produced, and directed short films, music videos, PSAs, and plays, including We, which won the Best Music Video at AIFF in 2018, and Powwow Sweat, a CDC-funded PSA fitness campaign. Please welcome her. I was going to memorize these, but I didn't. And Jana Schmeiding is a Lakota actor, writer, and comedian known for her work on Rutherford Falls, The Great North, Spirit Rangers, and Reservation Dogs. And pop quiz, who did she play on Reservation Dogs? Beth. And then who did she play on Rutherford Falls?
Right. Nice.
Oh, straight A student. And Josh is the Native American student coordinator at Pomona College and a PhD candidate here. So we have awesome people in the audience today. And I also just want to hype up the event tonight. Native Jam Night is going to be playing over in the barn. We have some of the artists in the audience today, so come see that tonight. It's free and open to the public. So Jana is also the creator of a podcast and accompanied live show, Women of Size, described as where brilliant women discuss their bodies. Previously a public school teacher in New York City, Jana moved to Los Angeles to further pursue a career in television. She was born and raised in rural Oregon, studied theater arts at the University of Oregon, and got her master's in teaching from Mercy College in New York. She cut her teeth in the improv and sketch comedy scene, not a surprise if you've seen the shows, in New York City, where she wrote, performed, and directed regularly. She is currently writing, producing, and directing Auntie Chuck, which she describes as a story about a Resi spinster. And then Tazbah has a special Tazbah Chavez is Dene, Namu, San Carlos Apache. She's a performance poet turned television writer and director from the Bishop Paiute Reservation, so California Indian Reservation up north, the beautiful highway. She's currently co-executive producer, episodic director on FX's Reservation dogs. So you've, I'm sure, seen some of her episodes. They're some of the most memorable ones. And she's worked on Sci-Fi's Resident Alien. Have any of you seen that show? I just started watching it. It's really, really, really fun. Peacock's Rutherford Falls, directed on HBO Max, Sex Lives of College Girls. I also watched that with my daughters. So inappropriate. And is a writer-director on Fox's upcoming new series, Accused. Tazbah has written ads for Nike and Seven, directed health and cultural preservation campaigns and PSAs for tribes throughout California. She has performed her poetry in acclaimed spaces such as the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian, Meow Wolf, and the Grand Performances Stage, to name a few. She holds a degree in American and Indian Studies at UCLA, and we are also honored to have her. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce you to Sierra Teller Ornelas, who has previously staffed on Loot, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Superstore, Happy Endings, Splitting Up Together, Surviving Jack, and Selfie. Have you seen some of those? Yeah, awesome. She is a co-creator and showrunner of the Peacock show Rutherford Falls, starring Ed Helms, Jana Schmeiding, and Michael Greyeyes. Sierra's work has been featured on This American Life, the New York Times op-ed section, and the Hollywood Reporter's guest column. A graduate of the University of Arizona, she previously worked as a film programmer for the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian, helping to create ridiculously entertaining programs about Native film and media. Raised in Tucson, Arizona, she is also an award-winning 6th-generation Navajo tapestry weaver, a fairly good mom. It's about as good as it gets. Really, that means, good enough. That's a star for that. And currently resides in Los Angeles. So please welcome them.
So this is how this happened. So this all kind of came about kind of quickly, and then I'm watching Instagram, and Jana's Instagram feed, like, follow her now, like, get your phone out and follow her if you've got. And so she did this hilarious recent post about Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which you're about to see, and I'm like, we should show our clips before this. So that's what happened, just probably within the last 48 hours. So we're just gonna watch some fun stuff here, just to give you some ideas of their work. We're gonna see me first.
I would probably say for a certain generation, I'm most known for my role in Seinfeld. There's a younger generation, like a 90s generation, that knows me from Charmed. And then most recently, I would say probably Reservation Dogs.
It's no problem, but it's gonna cost you an extra $50 for that rush order.
What got me into acting was, I was one of those kids, like many people who may be watching this, that like I love doing little plays and things, like growing up, and I was obsessed with film and television. I watched so much television, and so that was my goal. My original goal of thinking, I want to be on television one day, was a Life cereal commercial, and that's kind of what kicked it all off. Being a Native American actress is wonderful. I really love being an Indigenous thinker. I love being out in our community and learning how different tribal peoples see the world, how the interpersonal relationships work, how their relationship with the spirit world, the invisible world works. Like being an actor, being a storyteller is, like they say, it's the greatest job in the world, and it's great work when you can get it. It's interesting because, and I'm not a film history buff, but to my knowledge, I believe that our Native people were the subject matter of one of the first films made here in the United States. And so, we were always there in the beginning. And it's interesting because it wasn't red-face, it was actual Native folks. I think, in general, America was kind of fascinated with our people. So that was really kind of interesting that it began with us authentically. What I think it will take to maintain and increase representation, the authenticity and representation in Hollywood for Indigenous folks, is the above-the-line positions. Also nurturing our Indigenous writers, our Indigenous actors. To be honest, I don't think there's ever been a lack of talent. It's been a lack of opportunity. And that's why I love, and I know people push against this, but the diversity, equity, inclusion movement. Yes, there are aspects of it that are problematic, but the idea is right. But I do feel like you have to add access to that. But what can change, and I think what will change, is that as Indigenous folks and as people of color in general, we're really good at being innovative. And now especially that we can, grab a camera, go out and make our own work, I just don't think there's anything stopping us. UCR is innovative, forward-thinking, yet still honors the past. It's on Indigenous land, and it's full of brilliant, compassionate people that really care about each other and our students. All of us on faculty and staff, it's such a powerful place to be. One university like UCR that really is dedicated to the first generation student. There's nothing more important than what's going on right here, right now at UCR. Sustaining our food, sustaining our water, sustaining and creating answers to medical issues, and the research happening right here in our department as storytellers is of equal value because neuroscience proves that the human mind processes its reality through story. So the stories that are being told and who gets to tell them will affect not just the present but the future of humanity. And that's all happening right here at UCR.
Sign up. I know.
So do you guys, there's a lot of people who've seen our work. Let's just open it up. Plus, if you want to get involved in this industry, you have questions like that, we're all here. Jump in. Don't be shy. Yes.
First of all, just thank you for being here and all your work for the community. I wonder how you balance doing multiple roles at the same time, and even multiple acting roles, or even multiple roles within the same production, like being a director, writer, actor, anything to that sense. Thank you.
Great. You all start down there because you are multi-hyphenates, to say the least.
You want to start? I'm just a writer.
Well, I mean, I'm a showrunner as well,
is
but
like a CEO.
But this is true. I have a lot of jobs, but I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I think having a lot of great. Hi, I'm Hannah. I can't tell if we're supposed to use these or not. It's like very awkward.
Same, I don't know. You're government official.
Government official. The UN says
tribal
that we are.
government
Yeah,
official.
I feel like the chairman.
You're the president right now.
The president of Indian Hollywood. Sierra Teller my clans are Edgewater and Mexican clan, just for the Navajos in the house, which Tazbah is.
Why did you do that to me?
I'm just giving my sister a little crap.
That was love.
but
That's how
always-
Navajos show love.
Yes, it's just meanness.
Yeah.
But no, so as a showrunner, you're sort of like the coach, and your job is to kind of put together these players, the writers, and the actors, and make sure everyone's collaborating together. And so for me, it's like trying to create a really safe environment where people can pitch and people can feel safe to tell their stories and know that you'll be careful with them. And so when you create an environment like that, I find that people give their all, and you can really delegate, and you don't have to do everything. And so that's what I would say. And then I think in terms of like, it was so great to have Tazbah direct episodes of Rutherford, because sometimes she would be writing them, but even if she wasn't, it was really lovely to just see her engage with the material and know Jana from the writer's room and know her from being on set, that we could really like dig into the details. So a lot of times people having multiple jobs, it sounds stressful. I don't know if this one's on anymore.
Can we get this one on, Albert?
That one should be on.
It was, but now we're
It's just not working.
Check one,
They
too.
powered down the system. So
We're just
Okay.
blowing out the entire light.
Okay. We come from an oral tradition.
We're loud.
We've been doing them always. But no, all to say is that when you have many jobs, you would think on the surface it would be more stressful, but it's like no one's going to know that script as a director better than a writer. Like no one's going to know how to act a certain scene. Someone who's also a writer that was in that writer's room and like knows what my intention as a showrunner is. So I really like hyphenates because I find that you get the best work.
Yeah, like Sierra said, when you have multiple hats, you sort of end up knowing the story better than anybody there because you have to look at it from different angles. For myself, I feel like there's sort of like 3 phases that involve each hat separately in terms of like writing to taking something through production. So like writing is happening sort of on its own in a writer's room. You have time to write that script. And then when you're on set, for example, like with Reservation Dogs, I'm there for 3 months to see the whole thing through on set. So it's like our writer's room ends, we go to Oklahoma, or you go to set on Rutherford Falls in the lot, and now your producer hat turns on, where now what you're looking for is different than what you were writing. Although in television, you're always writing up until shooting, and you're also writing as you're shooting. So like you might hear a joke for the first time and it might not land, so now your producer brain is like, how do we fix this? Or something is like coming up, or something's maybe not, because in television you have episodic directors, so there's usually a different set of directors. Oh, let's watch it and I'll talk about it. Okay, sorry.
Welcome, ladies. It is an honor to meet each and every one of you. My name is Eagle Woman. You met Blue Raven. She's my apprentice, my right hand, because I'm left-handed. So, but right now, what she wants to do is just pass out sage tea, and this is part of our ceremony. Open up the soul. In the teachings of the eagle, it's about being able to see everything from a higher perception. The eagle flies the highest. It flies close to the sun. And then it travels behind the sun to meet with Creator, with the ancestors. And then it brings back the wisdom. Forget what you know and remember what you forgot.
I love meditation. I love yoga. I can relax.
It must have censored the other part.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna
Anyway.
finish, so keep things like.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry. I'm gonna finish my answer.
Please do.
This is all about collaboration. And really good communication.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you get on set, you're now producing it, and you have a different role then. And then when you add a director hat on top of that, then you're like, okay. When you're thinking about writing and you're directing, they're two very different skill sets. And so you have a script that you're gonna shoot, and even if you've written the script that you're directing, you look at your script as if you didn't write it. Like, even though I know the tone, even though I know the intent, you have to then turn that writer brain off, and you have to turn a directing brain on, which is executing the visual and performance aspect of what's on paper and bringing it to life. And so you're looking at it, I can whisper. So yeah, you're looking at it from two different areas, but, and also when you are directing, which I don't think everyone really quite understands what that is. I feel like it's like a very mysterious role. And what you're essentially doing is you have a lot of really talented department heads, your hair, your makeup, costumes, production design, and these are all masters of their craft. And your job as a director, or the way I approach it, is to get everybody in those departments who are masters of their craft to get to a common vision. And putting a lot of trust in them to help you build out this world. That's your prep. And then when you're on the day, you're also working with how visually you want to tell the story. And then on the day, if you've done all of that, you get to focus your attention on performance, which is one of my favorite things. And performance part is where I feel like being a writer in the room and a producer really is a benefit, because when you've written the thing, you know what the intent is behind the joke. Whereas if I go direct on something like Sex Lives of College Girls, where I'm solely a director, I'm turning a lot to their writers to make sure that I'm executing the way that they saw the scene. But when you're on the show and you're in the room and you've done it from the beginning, you do kind of have a little bit of an easier time. So yeah, like Sierra said, it can seem like it could be a lot of things stacked, and it is if you're also rewriting other people's scripts till 2 a.m. and then you're having to be on set at 5 a.m. to direct your own episode. That's where it gets a little bit crazy, where you're I also have this other job to do while and getting that episode ready while you're directing the current one. So, yeah.
Pass the mic. I guess I don't have a ton to add to both of those experiences, except that as a performer, you also are contributing some writing, in the performance. there's especially in comedy, I think there's a lot of opportunity to, you know, get the lines as scripted, but then there's always a few takes where you can sort of add your own sauce and, you know, make it spicier or milder, I guess, if need be. And like, so it helps to, I think my writer brain, my writer self has been really informed by my performance self, and vice versa. I think both have made me better at each other. And I have never directed yet, but I would love to. I like all parts of the process. Logistically, it is challenging to be a hyphenate if you're on the same production, but the way that TV works, it's mapped out in a way that, like, you know, the room happens for a good 12 weeks before you go into production, and then you're able to leave the room if need be and go be in production if need be. And so it's set up so that is a possibility.
Awesome. And I feel like there's two things as an actor. How many people here want to get into the acting side of things? So quite a few. And then also people that want to work with actors as well. I do feel like for all of us in the age that we're in right now, that you need to be the multi-hyphenate. You need to find the other things that you really love to do. Like, I love to edit. It's just something I feel like I'm fairly good at. I have a good sense of rhythm and things like that. And so that, and I also screenwrite. But like when I'm on camera, we just did a independent feature back in Oklahoma about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was a fairly new group. It was their first feature, and I knew they didn't have the coverage they needed. And I felt like I was an elder enough statesman that I could gently raise my hand to the director and say, you don't have the coverage you need, this isn't gonna edit. Because, you know, and so we went back and picked up that shot. Now they could shoot me down because I'm just the talent, but I do think it helps sometimes when it's all hands on deck to kind of understand how the whole process works. So that is, it's just nice to kind of have an aspect, kind of understand the entire kind of the machinery of making a movie or making television as best you can. And then as far as when you're really, really lucky to get to go from role to role, which I've just done a couple of times in my life, it's about having a very good roadmap for each of those characters. And for me, I really, really rely heavily on wardrobe. So and hair and makeup. So it's, once I've already done the prep, I know who my character is. I have some secrets that nobody else knows but myself. Other than and if it's a really big secret, I'll check in with the writer or the director to say, like, hey, here's this thing that I'm gonna hold on to. Does it work, does it not work? And so that when I'm going, literally one day I'm shooting this character that's radically anti-B, radically different, you know, than my character on Rutherford Falls, is that it's really easy to shift into one or the other because it's literally just taking a different roadmap. You know, and once I get in my wardrobe, I can become, it's an embodiment. They have a different physicality, they have a different way of breathing and walking and all the different things. So it's a lot about preparation. Yeah. Other questions, thoughts, comments?
You could ask us about any television show. Doesn't even have to be our show.
Or do you want to see another trailer?
Do we have another one? I would love to see. I really want to see Wise Net.
Yes. Let's take it to another trailer.
I'll ask the question. I was wondering, so do you think it's like more inclined, like specific to use those or be in those multiple roles, or is that like across the board for film right now, like to be writers, to be directors, to be sort of like in each aspect, CEO?
I mean, I think that you should not force yourself to do something that doesn't feel right to you.
Right.
I think that it is very hard to break into an industry, especially if you come from a marginalized community. So like in the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon method, you know, sometimes the best way to get in is to write something about your weird Boston community and make you guys the coolest people in that movie and get people to see it. Like that is, I think, where the sort of inspiration for that suggestion is coming from. But obviously if that's not what you feel, like I'm not an actor. I think I could maybe direct, but I've always come from things from like a writer. Like when Taz was talking about like turning off, I always see things as a writer. Even when I'm producing, I'm like, is this a producible episode? And so you kind of go from the budget and sort of those sort of things. But I think that as you find yourself in these worlds, most people get very curious. There's a lot of downtime on sets. And so you start asking, you know, what is your job? What do you do? How does this work? And the more you can understand other people's jobs, often the better you are at your own job. So if you only want to be an actor, talk to your editor, find out what takes the showrunner likes, find out what performances always get cut, just so that when you get on set, you've kind of got a lot of arrows in your quiver of what to do and how to be, and you just have that knowledge. And so I think the best, like Jana always says, like, if you want to be a great writer, like take an acting class, you know, so even if you don't do it as your job, I think having a lot of those skills kind of helps you to see how the other half works and sees things. Yeah.
Totally.
The
Any luck?
system shut down again, that's
It's
why
shut
your mics
down.
aren't working.
Cool. That's when it comes back up. We'll do.
It's
We'll
coming.
do.
It'll-
We'll do. There's one in the back. Why not?
For the film industry, were there any like specific obstacles that you had to overcome being an Indigenous woman?
I've only worked in television,
Or like
so I can't.
anything like that?
What?
Like anything like around that, like career?
Just in the
Yes. All of it.
All the things.
I mean, to me, the biggest hurdle to get over is the belief that you're not allowed to do it. And for me, that took years to overcome. You have to like really just convince yourself, despite the messaging literally everywhere, that you're allowed to do this and that you can do it and you can do it really well. The barriers come at every phase, you know, pitching, getting people to invest in your work, getting people to watch your work, getting the industry that you're working with to understand how to market your work. Mm-hmm. That's a whole thing. Casting the right people for your projects, you know. There's a lot against us, but I think we're really creative as people, and we have sort of a tenacious spirit, and especially in our art, that is like, if nothing else, like we have tenacity. So it does sort of work in our favor that we are like that, because the same is true for Hollywood, film or television. Like, you just simply have to be very ambitious and tenacious about your objective and like pursue it however long it takes and however challenging that may be.
Yeah, and off of that also, yeah, you're, like she said, you're sort of met with challenges at every step and everything you want to do. Part of it is being a woman, and then part of it is being Native. So it's like, you know, I think a lot of people from, you know, historically excluded communities can relate to that. But it's interesting because it looks different in different hats that you're wearing. Like, as a director, like being a female director, first of all, people are like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And you also walk onto a set where you have to sort of like command energy and all of these things. And like, I think a lot of things that were told to me as a female director was like, how you talk matters, how you carry yourself matters. And there's sort of this thing that like, this like idea that I had to be masculine in order to have respect. And thank God I'm a Native woman where I can't deny like our, like, the matriarch in me, where I like I've actually leaned into the feminine, which has helped, which has served me. But a lot of times you'll have people feeling like they have to behave like white men, and so that's one thing, is like figuring out like, how do I still stay in myself and the qualities that I possess as a Native woman. And then the next layer you have on top of that is like, even if you've made it past the thing of like, okay, you have the ability to do it as just a female director, then it's like, well, you're only getting hired to direct Native content because you're good at understanding Native nuance, and you're good at like, you know, you're good for this, but it's really important to me to make sure that I'm not just hireable for Native projects, that I'm hired for my skill set and the ability to direct any story I feel connected to. Although I will always first and foremost choose a Native project because we need it, but it's really, you know, important to also be acknowledged and hired for your skill set. And so in doing that, in order to accomplish that, you have to like really be good at your craft. So it's constantly learning, constantly practicing, constantly finding your gaps, constantly filling in, because you have to basically work to be undeniably the best person for the job. Which some of our colleagues don't have to do. I feel passionate about that question.
Can I add one thing? One thing that I was told early on in this industry that I found to be very true is that Hollywood, mainstream Hollywood, and on some level like independent stuff, but like it's all run on fear. So everyone's afraid. Everyone's afraid of losing money, afraid of losing their job, afraid of picking the thing that's going to be a bomb, right? And the town, unfortunately, was run for many years by people who just exuded confidence. This like kind of, you know, mogul type confidence. But I have found that if you can, and I think matriarchy, I think like in my nation, Navajo Nation,
My
women,
nation too.
your nation as well, I've heard. Right. She's Bishop Haiut, but her mom is Navajo, so I always give her credit.
Which
She's
makes me more Navajo
Which
than
makes her more
Haiut.
Navajo in my mind. So I just give her
And
credit.
also by blood quantum.
I mean, hello. So you heard it here first. But anyway, so we run everything. Like Navajo women run everything. Like even back in the day, if a man came home and saw his saddle on the ground in front of the hogan, that meant like he was divorced and got dumped, and the only thing he got was his saddle. Like we kept all the horses, we kept all the land, we kept all the everything. And so when I come into these spaces, I feel like I feel confident in what I'm doing because I come from people who exude confidence in a matriarchal way. So, but I think that everyone is going to come at you with fear, and I think when people are afraid, they cancel shows, they don't pick your thing, they don't take chances. And so if you can kind of make the people around you feel comfortable and safe, which I think women from marginalized communities know how to do, then you will win. And so it's really not about like having to change the game or there's a path for us that fits within this paradigm of Hollywood running on fear. And you feel it now, especially post strikes. People are freaking out right now. And I've just gotten like really quiet in meetings. I've just been, because my first instinct is to be like, it can be anything, we can fix it. But it's like actually the more I kind of just calm down and wait and sort of exude a quiet confidence, the easier it's been to succeed.
So this is a question for all of you, but what inspired you to get into movies?
Kimberly? What inspired you, Kimberly?
That Life cereal commercial you just saw. I mean, I grew up in this really small, pitiful little town in Oklahoma. And yes, we had one theater, but I didn't get to go that often. So, but the television was there for me. And so I grew up, I feel like, you know, I was trained by Lucy and Bewitched and Gilligan's Island and all of the great sitcoms of that era. And I believe that's where I got my comedy timing. And I don't know, I had this optimistic delusion.
We're delusional.
I mean, we're delusional. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, there's nobody that looked like me. Eddie Munster, maybe? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there was just nobody. And then when I got a little bit older, I think I was in junior high when Nia Peoples was on Fame. And I mean, I locked on to her, like, you know, it was like, so it was all the things. But I don't know what, like, you know, I started UCLA in 85, 86, and there was just nobody that, but it was like, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, you know, and I don't know why. And it just so happened that things kind of, you know, coalesced. So, and then it became this thing because I do love our community. I got to know our community. And I think this goes back to the previous question about the obstacles. I really feel like the earlier you can figure out your why are you doing this? You know, and what is that why? It's a lot easier for that tenacity. So it wasn't just me because I didn't know what else to do, you know. I mean, this felt like my calling. You kind of mentioned that earlier, Tazbah, just about feeling like a calling. But then also getting to know my community and realizing nobody was out there representing us. Nobody was out there in this realm, you know, representing us. Like, well, I'll do it. I don't know if I can do it, but I'll give it a shot. You know, and so I think just knowing that why was super helpful. But yeah, it was just seeing somebody on, it literally is like watching, now if you grew up as a kid when I did Saturday morning cartoons were a thing, like every Saturday morning, and the commercials on looked so much fun, especially those cereal commercials. I'm like, I want to be in the honeycomb hideout. I want to do all this stuff. So I think that's just it's that deep of an answer. That's what gave me.
I'm gonna go because she's part of what inspired me. So when I would get done with Head Start, I would go to my grandma's house next door. We watched General Hospital, we watched As the World Turns, and then at nighttime before bed, we would watch like I Dream of Jeannie, like I Love Lucy, all those things. So a lot of those things. And then at my house, I was the youngest, so I was watching a lot of Simpsons, a lot of Cops, a lot of X-Files. Anyways, so that was inspiring. But
Fox.
What actually Fox, and now I work for Fox sometimes. I do. But Kimberly is actually one of the people who inspired me to get into film because she helped co-create a program with my father on our reservation, which was called Akatobi Film and Music Academy, and they basically created this program through TANF as a preventative program to keep us as teenagers in the summer from drinking and getting pregnant. And they were like, you guys want to go make films or songs? And we were like, yeah. So I was part of a big group that she created the curriculum for, and we showed up on that first day and they were like, do you want to do music? Do you want to do film? And I was like, I want to do both. And she is who taught our youth at that time, including myself, about acting. There were Native directors there, there were Native writers there were Native musicians there, and that was the first time in my life that I realized that film was a medium that I could create because they took us through the whole pitch process. Like, people, they kind of identify, you guys do a good job too identifying like personalities for certain jobs. They're like, she seems like a producer, she's bossy, she's like a director, she seems sensitive, she could be a writer. Like, they were just like, you're getting to know us, but when we would come to them with ideas, they made us pitch, like at a table, and they would like either greenlight or not greenlight somebody's project. And so that's where I like really actually, that was my film school. And so she's a really big part of that. Aww. Yeah, so that's why I had to follow you because,
And now Tazbah hires me. Full circle.
Do it. I actually originally just wanted to perform on stage. I'm a theater nerd. I was a theater major at University of Oregon. I did like high school musicals and plays and private performances for my family that may or may not have entailed some ballet dancing, a couple comedy sketches from SNL, Chris Farley. So yeah, I guess I just really loved the idea of performing, and I'm also like a shyer person in my actual life. So there's something really liberating about being on stage and being able to be somebody else, and you can, embody a character that isn't who you are. To me, it's like religion. It feels like church to be able to perform. I didn't know that TV was an option, and so I kind of was walking through life being like, I want to be on Broadway. That's the biggest, like, that, I can't even, I would still do it. Let's make that very clear. Looking for my first Broadway gig. But I think I made the switch from being a teacher to trying to work in television because I was looking for a way to do comedy that would give me some kind of security in life, and writing for TV is kind of like that. I think when I look at the industry, I'm like, being a writer is kind of, in a sad way, like the most secure job that I could see. And being an actor is not, there's no security in that.
No.
You're really like a gig worker, and it's really hard to get any kind of benefits from SAG unless you are consistently working, and so I just didn't see that as a tenable path for me. But anyway, that's sort of like the transition that I made happen because I needed to try to do something professionally and get paid to do it, whereas I would do it for free for the rest of my life, like if that were the path and I was ready to do that. But But I guess there was a little part of me that wanted to be on TV and like
Oh, yeah.
would not like stifle those dreams. I just didn't really know that was a possibility. And now I mean I'm just now getting into the place where I'm like wanting to do a movie. Like movies are like another type of this art that it's very different from TV and it's a completely different process. And so since I've been able to do some TV, it's like opened up the world a little bit to be able to get into some film.
I guess it all started with like a desperate thirst for attention that was like the main source of my spirit. Where my mom is a native artist. She's a master Navajo tapestry weaver. Hold for applause. And when you're at the loom, you're just staring at this thing, and she would weave like 8 or 9 hours a day, 6 days a week. She would take months to finish pieces. And when you're a little kid, you're like, Mom, look at me. Like, there's so many photos of me and my brother, like, trying to look through the warp strings of like, guess what I'm doing, And so comedy was like a way to get attention. And she didn't have any coworkers, so when I got home from school, she'd be like, tell me everything about your day. Start from the beginning. She was just like thirsty for conversation. And so the more entertaining I could be in that moment, the better chance she had of staying up late and working. And then she would give us like, $20 and say like, go to Blockbuster and just rent like all the new releases. And so we were binge watching before that was like a thing, where we would just watch TV and movies for hours and hours. And then I remember, because when cable first came out long ago, there wasn't a lot of content for those channels, so they would just put anything on. And so I watched all the shows you're mentioning, even though it was all happening in the 90s. So I would run home to watch Laverne and Shirley, and I just loved them. I loved them so much. And it was a Gary Marshall show, the guy who did Pretty Woman, and it was so funny. And I remember my dad, who was like this like pharmacist and college educated, was like, you can't watch that anymore. And I was like, why? And he's like, because it's making you dumb. And he was like, I'm actively trying to make you smart, and this is like going against. And I had to debate him. I like went to the mat and was like, no, this is why this is good, and like debated him and got to keep watching it. And I guess according to my mom, I would tell her I was researching, and that I had this like second grade teacher who told my parents that like, I'm telling everyone that I'm gonna write for TV, and that they need to like correct it and tell me to like do something else, that like that's impossible, and that like that's not gonna happen. And so my dad was asking my mom, he's like, what do we do here? And she was like, let her believe it, like who cares, like that's the dream. And then that teacher was wrong, because I do make television. And my dad said, he was like, I was so wrong, and it's hilarious how wrong I am. But yeah, I just have always loved comedy, and I always wanted to be a part of a writer's room. Like I watched the show called The Dick Van Dyke Show, and the guy, Dick Van Dyke, was a TV writer, and there was 2 writers in his room. One of them was this girl, Rosemary, and she was like really loud and funny, and she had terrible taste in men, and I was like, this feels like my vibe. Like as a 10-year-old, like this is how it's probably gonna be. And then I got a copy of this like New York Times magazine that was all about the writer's room, and they explained that there was a fridge, and you could write whatever you wanted on the fridge, and then the next day it would be there, like any kind of food or soda. And I was just like, I'm in for the free snacks. I'm fully in. And so it's like the most base urge of like attention and free snacks, but it worked, and here I am.
And the manifestation. That's a perfect segue because we have Rutherford Falls ready.
Oh.
And then I guess we'll shut down and then finish up with White Neck.
100 years ago, my patriarchal ancestor, Lawrence Rutherford, founded our town. Anyone see the resemblance?
I definitely see it. It's in the jaw, the shoulders, the chest, and probably some other places.
Okay, thank you. I am the steward of my family's legacy. That will resonate throughout history.
And you have a museum.
You're gonna get yours too.
This is a ginormous casino, but nobody wants to help my cultural center.
The only native artifacts in here are those bangs.
You seem smart. I'm guessing lots of college. Not Ivy League, but so close it drives you crazy.
Northwestern.
Nathan, I'm calling to request a response to Mayor Chisenhall's decision to move Big Larry.
I'm sorry, what? The problem is not Big Larry. It's the road.
This is the 5th time someone's crashed into that statue. It's a public safety issue.
It's history, Deirdre. You can't change history unless you have a time machine.
And you don't, because if you did, you'd go back and tell yourself not to buy that blazer.
What? I'm gonna get this town on my side. Yes.
And I'm gonna transform my cultural center.
Yes.
This town has forgotten how to honor their ancestors.
Can we focus on the problems that are actually important?
Well, Big Larry's important.
More important than the opioid crisis?
Apples and oranges, Carla.
There's something happening in that town. This is a story about stories.
Damn. The podcasting voice is very manipulative.
So much drama.
But let's leave them
Okay,
more.
no, but I'm not done telling these people why they're wrong and stupid.
This is why it's not worth being friends with white people.
No.
And might I say, we were just talking about things just shutting you down. Please go, if you haven't seen Rutherford Falls, binge it and then weep that it didn't get a season 3. It frickin' is just one of the best shows on television. Regardless if it had native content or not. Jana's just one of the best leading ladies of all time.
100%.
And it was just getting going. So. But please go back and watch it. Do yourself a favor, and then you're gonna be bummed that there's not a season 3 for sure.
Sierra,
Yes.
did you already have ideas and a story written up for season 3?
Yeah, we had a big stories for season 3. We're gonna tackle vegans. That was my big dream. Was that like
big stuff?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to take down vegans. That was like my big season 3 dream. And I think it was like you and Dallas trying to live in one of those tiny houses on your land, and like Dallas like loving the community, and you being like, yeah, we love it, but do we love it? And then Jesse being mayor and like him completely ruining the town, and then having to like fix it all and everything.
Did you want to watch the other clip?
Yes, please.
It's still working.
Listen to me. White people go to Cancun. We go to IHS conferences. It's our way. These are my kills. You get one anytime you snag with somebody from the host tribe.
Impressive achievements, Beverly.
Well, there's one out there for you. Well, watch out for bad medicine, though. Yeah, wear socks. The medicine comes up through your feet.
We also have the dance.
Oh yeah, play that one.
Is the dance clip pulled up? Okay.
That was my dream come true.
Right?
It's gonna make me burp. It's gonna make me fart. It's gonna make me burp.
I think it's kicking in.
What'd you say? It's kicking in? Yes, bitch. Oh, yeah, I feel like. Yeah, I feel like. I don't know what I feel.
Oh, they're playing Brandy. Let's dance. That'll fix it.
Seems like ever since the first day we met, there is no one else I think of more than you. Can't seem to forget, can't get you in my head. There's no direction, I'm crazy over you. How can we be done? Tell me where to start.
because when I was working with Tazbah out in the reservation, I was a part of the Native Wellness, still am, part of the Native Wellness movement. So we would travel kind of all over. And Theta Newbreast is like one of my homies from that. She was like the auntie that was out there. And then that's my niece, Natalie Standing Cloud, that plays Natalie in Reservation Dogs with the auntie. And she wanted to be an actress, and so I put her in my very first short film. Back in the day, and Angelique Midthunder, that was her first official casting job on my short film, and she cast Reservation Dogs. So it's just like it's just a big loving family, and so it's just such a powerful moment to see all that together. It's cool. I saw a hand over here. Donatella, was that you?
Yes. So it's so amazing that you're here. I was going to ask also what was going to happen in season 3 to Reagan and Terry and Bobby, but also how would you articulate the impact of Rutherford Falls besides like making the Yellowstone people angry because of your hilarious, brilliant, cutting satire?
Oh man, I don't know. Yes, you do.
I mean, we were the first, right? I mean, it was like a photo finish, but we were making it when there was nothing else out there. So one thing I do feel really proud of is just in terms of like the media literacy, that we really primed the pump for, I think, a lot of the shows that came after us. There was a lot of like Indians 101 that we were sort of first on the beach for, and were able to kind of like get people ready for. I know, like, you know, not a lot of people had Peacock subscriptions. We premiered during the pandemic, but I will say, like, when we went to Indian Market, Jana was like mobbed. She was like a beetle. And there were all of these like Native women artists who came up to us like kind of emotional and really, really felt so included and so cared for. And I think that, you know, growing up, I loved like rom-coms and Nora Ephron movies, and I wanted to be Meg Ryan in all those movies. And so I really got to see Jana as like my muse and put her in these situations where she was in a love triangle, or she was, you know, this girl trying to figure it out. And so I really feel like there was something about Native excellence that we got to show on television that is something that I grew up with and that didn't feel abnormal to me. And really getting to see that translated on screen, the folks who I come upon are very grateful for that. And I think we will kind of want to see, like, even watching this episode of the conference episode, I felt like not like responsible or anything, but like I felt like that was so much of the conversations we were having season 2 was like wanting to see Native people funny and light and get the win and get the girl and have fun, and it didn't need to be like a huge message. It could just be like a fun comedy sequence. And so to see you make that episode, I was so just like proud, if that makes any sense. Man.
Thank you. I remember too, like, talk about impact. When it was coming out too, I remember there was the conversation about Native joy.
Yeah.
And that was something that, and I love that you articulated, all three of you articulated that for even me, because when I would be in a pitching in Hollywood getting shut down time after time after time on the other side of the camera, that was something I couldn't quite get a hold of. I'm like, but it's so much fun. It's like, yes, we have our issues, but it's so much fun. And because my stuff is like rom-com and comedy and things like that, and they're, you know, it's like for just generations, people didn't think Indians were funny. Yeah. And it's just like, then you've never been to our community. Mm-hmm. Like, laughter's how we got through the last 500 years. So, you know, it's I think that was a really important moment too, is that we could celebrate that. It's really impactful. Yeah.
What advice do you have for someone who's trying to get into like acting?
Great. Jenny, you want to take it first?
Well, I think there's a lot of different ways to come into it. I really feel like there's a lot of opportunity, like with digital media, and now that we have phones, to like mess around on TikTok and like make, you know, build a little body of work in the palm of your hand. I think for me it was always trying to collaborate with different people. I mean, the theater experience is so collaborative, and so is the on-set experience. So like, I think being a performer is also being a really good collaborator, being able to listen to direction, being able to agree and disagree in a good way, like being in working on all of those soft skills, what we call soft skills, like that's like your expertise as a performer. And then yeah, just like finding ways to practice it in your own life. I was always just trying to find like sketch comedy collaborations and improv comedy collaborations, while also trying podcasting and trying stand-up and trying all of the different comedies, and just really getting used to performing, getting used to like the energy, what it feels like to perform in front of an audience and to communicate with an audience and have that sort of silent conversation with an audience. I feel like it was years of practicing that, and it has gotten me to a place where I know I can make an audience laugh, and I know when an audience needs to laugh, or if an audience isn't going to laugh, I know how to recover from the bomb. So it's all of those like really tiny like intuitive skills that you build over time as a performer. And then breaking in, God, there's so many different ways to do that. And it just depends on sort of what your avenue is. And yeah, I've heard of people, especially, you know, marginalized people, like having to go different ways besides just like finding an agent and like auditioning. Like that seems like the hardest way to get in my opinion, is the traditional industry way. To me, I think it's more about building a platform for yourself as a storyteller and as like a person with a point of view about the world, and like and then creating projects that pull other people into the projects. I always tell young artists, like, don't wait to be invited to be on other people's things. I think as an actor, you're sort of like told like, oh, I just hope I get this job, or I hope that I get an agent, or like I hope that this, you know, this audition goes well, but I have no control over it. Find a way to take control of it, of the performing. And for me, that has always been creating projects for myself and writing for myself, and then inviting other people to come into those projects. And this is like independently, right? On these shows, I'm collaborating with people who are like, hiring me. But to get to that place, I had to do my own independent study, my own work, and build a community around my work.
Yes.
Are you Native?
I have like Indigenous descent.
Okay. Because I do think like when it comes to like specific groups, making sure everyone around you knows that you want to be an actor. Because I know like when on Rutherford, we'd have to find like a teenage girl who can tap dance or something, and you would just be like on Facebook, and like everyone's auntie would tell everyone's auntie, and then you get like 7 different phone numbers, and so because the pool is still so small, it is sort of word of mouth. And I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, my niece said she wanted to act at the last barbecue, can she send in a tape? And you're like, yeah, send in a tape. Like, it's a one line, you know. So I think also too, like, just making sure your circle knows, like, hey, I remember you emailing me and being like, hey, just, I also want to act. I'm like, good to know. Like, now it's in the hopper of my brain. If I can think of something, we can pull this person in.
And I'm teaching the business of acting class right now, and every casting director I've had that's come in says they're looking at people's social media.
Yeah.
So you can build that platform now. You do not have to wait. And if you don't shoot, like if you're not a camera person, or maybe you don't write, you can find people here. There's art shorts. There's lots of theater clubs. You can find your tribe here, your creative tribe here, even if it's just one other person that can hold the camera while you're performing. But just start now, because that's the easier way to break in. Or you look at a Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who put up her one-woman show at the Fringe Festival in London, and then it became her show, and now she's, and Issa Rae is the same thing. Issa Rae did, her show on YouTube, her own YouTube, just her and her camera, and now, just a giant deal with HBO. So make your own work.
Yeah, and to add to that, I would say too, like, with Reservation Dogs, we casted a lot of non-actors. So also, I say that also that, if you want to act, like, it's good to learn about it and to like start honing your craft, but also so many people that we cast in roles on that show were not people who would consider themselves actors. And what it was is we were thinking about people and we're like, oh, this person would be perfect for that. Like Theda Newbreast, who you mentioned, who played the auntie in Wide Net, that the girls went to her feminine table. You know, I wrote that character and that dialogue based on a real life story of Theda telling some of my girlfriends at a wellness conference this information. And so when it came to cast, I was like, I went to Angelique Midthunder, and you know, and I saw other tapes too, you know, those will come in, but I said, I really want to cast Theda. I don't know if she's acting. I actually don't know if she would do it or not. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna find her. She went to her Instagram. I also went to my girlfriends who know her and said, can you put in a good word for me for Theda, that like I have this role and I would be so honored if she would just read for it. Let's see like what happens. And then she had the best tape of all of these trained actresses coming in because she was just like the right person for it. It was her. So I share that because the casting process too is like, it's finding a person who can embody this character, and sometimes depending on what it is, it's somebody who's just really out there and they just are this person. And I don't mean out there, I mean just like out in the world. And you know, also when I've cast other things, like when we were doing Accused up in Toronto, I was told by casting that they weren't sure if they could find 50 Native background actors. And I was like, I'm sorry, we're in Toronto that has like one of the biggest First Nations community in the country. You're tripping. And so I went to the casting director and I said, can you make me a flyer that I can post on my Instagram and my Facebook and I can text to people? And then I said, and so she did. I said, okay, I'm gonna put this on my socials. Also, we need to are there any powwows coming up? Are there community centers? And she sent people to the powwow, she put them in community centers, and then I posted on my social media. We found more than 50 background actors. So I think for, you know, I can only speak for like the Native casting piece of it, but behind the scenes, we're very creative at how we're finding people and very like intentional about it. So just know that like, we're not just looking at people's like resumes or like, oftentimes too, sometimes like the casting director goes out and they do this big search. And with somebody like Angelique Midthunder, like she's going into communities that are not in LA, and she's really finding people who, they might be dancers, they might be, you know, like TikTokers. Like in Accused, like the woman who played Natalie, a Fox show that I did, she'd done like the voice of Nemo in Navajo, but she hadn't done like a role like that. She's a performance artist and she's a dancer. And I was like, I want and this is a place like Fox. This was not a Native show. This one episode was Native, but we talked to the casting director and I said, I have this girl in mind. She's fluent in her language. I feel like she has like the vibe. Ken went to her Instagram. She auditioned. She beat out all of these other like people who have been in roles, because she was also just right for it. It's not even about beating or being better than. It's just like casting is such like a puzzle piece. It's like a big puzzle you're putting together. Again, you know, like and you're seeing if this whole thing is like cohesive together. But oftentimes we're finding people outside of like the norm. So if anybody's interested in acting, like audition for things, like put in for tapes, especially Native shows, because there's not a lot of us and we have to be building out new actors. And then if you find that you have a knack for it and you get cast in anything, like then start learning more about acting, because then there's like a whole thing once you arrive on set, we gotta get you to like just like go. But anyways, I just want to share that from like a directing perspective.
And if you follow Angelique on Instagram, she's constantly posting like listings for like looking for this person 18 to 25 or whatever. And like if you can follow casting directors, it's all on IMDb. You just figure out who they are and follow them. They'll post all the time on their social saying we're looking for XYZ.
Absolutely. Yeah. Angelique has a post up right now for a lead in a show. So I mean it's not just, you know, background either. Although background's a great place to start. It's where I started in the industry. So do we have one last question? Wrap up? Otherwise, I'd love to just pitch it to you. Yeah, one more.
Oh,
I saw a hand in the back as well.
So, faculty also, our bread and butter is writing. Not funny, and really nobody reads it. But I think because, like, now your work is really skyrocketing. Like, there are going to be a lot of scholars who want to write about it. So I'm wondering about kind of the ethics or protocols about writing about your shows. There's a book kind of in the works on reservation dogs that I think is a really good model. So the two authors have talked to Sterling. They've also they're going to interview Johnny Daikon and Dana Tiger. They're interested in also looking at the artist Stephen Paul Judd. So I'm wondering, like, it's such a tricky thing because for scholars to interview you, it's like taking your time. There's no way we can compensate you for what you would charge an hour. So, you know what I mean? We don't get any really royalties from our books. And so I'm wondering, like, what might a protocol look like? To not write at all about what you're doing, or to write about it, or to kind of give you an advance kind of draft of the essay?
Yeah, I mean, I love being, I've gotten multiple reach outs for people's like thesis, you know. Also, we talk a lot about like repatriation and land back and certain elements in the show that like people have been showing it to like their high school classes as a way to like get people to understand these sort of like dense topics through comedy. So I'm always down to be interviewed and to be included in any academic paper. You don't have to pay us, because I like that to me is like the dream, is to have your work like interpreted in any kind of form like that.
Is there one more in the back?
Yeah. I think there's one last one in the back.
Yeah, I just had a question. So just like I'm really interested in like how other like ethnic cultures, like they study theater and like their own like techniques and stuff. Did y'all have to like do your study, like what are some like history or her story on like some like indigenous like theater techniques, on history of theater, and did y'all apply with that with your work as well?
I mean, I studied Native American history at UCLA, and I've always used my history background to prep for any character, because it's very rare that I'm playing my own tribe, because it's a more obscure tribe. So I'm always doing that work. Is that tribe matrilineal or patrilineal? Is it a tribe that culturally has their own language is very intact? Because then I can go and not fight, but in a positive way. Like, hey, I would like to add in more language into this role. You know, things like that. So that for sure has helped. And then I think just within, you know, when we're working on our own projects, I think we bring an Indigenous worldview into the way that we create. So, you know, certainly on Rutherford Falls and Reservation Dogs, it did not feel like any other show I've ever worked on. It felt like a tribe, and it was operating like a tribe. So the hierarchy was flattened, even though Sierra ran a very tight ship, even though Taz was running a very tight ship. You know, it's more in a circular or a spiral, in my language, school, in a spiral kind of way versus a top to bottom way. Yeah. What do you all think about that?
I really my theater education was very Western. I studied Shakespeare in London for a semester and learned like acting techniques through a Western lens. The comedy scene is very white, especially when you're working in a big city, and I came up in like sketch comedy and improv comedy in New York City. So it's I had to sort of do my own research about that, and because in college I was also an organizer, I was a student organizer with the Native Student Union. We were responsible for I liked to use my theater background to bring speakers and, artists who were, a lot more radical and not as Western, just even for my own exposure to that, and learned a lot about Augusto Boal and theater of the oppressed and how theater is practiced and impacted in oppressed communities. And I do use a lot of those theories in my work, but in terms of my actual performance, I'm truly pulling from my training that I got, classical training, but also, infusing it with what I know from my own community and, the characteristics of people in my own community. So it's been, it's really hard to, I'm assuming you're coming from this background, this theatrical background, and it's not easy. And especially in a university system, it's not easy to get access to that kind of stuff. But I think when you find the right professors and the right people who have worked in that space, you're gonna get a lot more exposure to that.
I'm having like a reaction to this question. Because I don't like I have an answer, but like I don't. Let me work it out.
You want a minute? Or you want to go first?
No, it's there. I grew up on my reservation. Like, I'm through and through like a res girl. Like, both sides of my family are very traditional. Like, on my mom's side, on my Navajo side, like, we are a family who goes to ceremony. Like, I've had all of my proper ceremonies and quinaldas and all of that. And then on my dad's side, my grandfather is a medicine man who ran spot. I'm part of the Stone family, which taught a lot of tribes in Southern California sort of like how to do spot in that way. So I've just always been immersed in storytelling, like, and whether that's sweat songs, whether that's prayer, whether, just even learning how to operate in the world with like etiquette and protocol, and our teachings, those are stories. And what I have found about that is that there is a certain rhythm and structure I find myself working within, both as a writer and as a director, that is very inherent. And I think that's because we come from an oral history culture. We come from a performance culture, songs, dance, like stories. And sometimes I think at first, like when I was first working in this industry, and particularly television, where I feel like film, there's a little bit more freedom of like the structure and sort of what you want to tell. But like when I entered first into this TV structure, particularly like comedy, like I had a hard time like fitting into that structure. And the only thing I could really pull from was the humor that I knew back home. And I didn't actually know that I was funny until I worked on Resident Alien and then Rutherford Falls, where I had two showrunners back to back be like, "You're funny," and she was like, "Thank God you're funny." That's not what she's like. That's not why I hired you, but thank God. And it was interesting because my showrunner on Resident Alien, he was like, "You have really good like comedic conceit." I didn't know what that meant. Like I was like, okay, but he was like, "Where did you learn that?" And I learned it from my family and like my cousins, and then even like. And Reservation Dogs is like this great example of like, it's just native humor in the sense of like the way that people are talking and the jokes and all of that. And then like, so that's why I'm saying I think I don't know that there's something like academic or in existence to like point to, except my family, and it makes me proud for that. And I think as I've moved along in this career, I've been able to create and develop projects of my own that feel more in my rhythm, that feel more in my structure. And to me, that's sort of the dream, and getting to a place where you can reimagine what a story can look like on screen, but you also still have to learn the technique and the formulas that are tried and true that work, that audiences connect to, and then you can kind of sort of figure out like how to break that. But yeah, that's my answer. It's very Indigenous.
I really wish you had gone last. No. So I am not from my reservation. I am a suburban native from Tucson, Arizona. And so like I come from in a different place in the sense of like, similar to Tazbah, I feel like my guiding light in terms of voice and technique in terms of native storytelling is my family. Like if my family was laughing, or if my family told a story that always resonated with me, there's a feeling I think you get in that environment that you're just sort of chasing. You kind of know it if you see it. And you've seen like when Martin Scorsese talks about like his parents like being dry cleaners and suit makers and making sure they did all the clothes on like Goodfellas, because he was like, they weren't doing it right, they weren't doing it the way my parents do it. And so there is just like this legacy in, I think, filmmaking and television, where it's like, Gary Marshall casting his sister, like there is something very homemade and very communal about television that I think I was drawn to. And it wasn't really until I was in a room of Native writers that I was like, oh, that's why, because there were these things that felt similar and comfortable, and I wasn't completely clued into why. That said, I think because I can't 100% tell a story based from a reservation, my intention is to really occupy these Hollywood spaces, because that is what I grew up loving. That's the stories my grandpa grew up loving. You know, my mom was a waitress in Kienta, which is where all of the like John Wayne movies were filmed. And so she would tell stories about like Robert Mitchum and John Wayne getting drunk and fighting. And so I think Indians are a specific thing where we're so influenced by Hollywood, and we're also like, we love it and it hates us, and it's very complicated. And so for me, when I'm putting Jana in a rom-com, or I want to make a native multicam, or like, it was important to me that we were like at the Universal lot. I think a lot of people looked at that as, oh, that's so sad you couldn't go to where you wanted to film it. But I was like, you mean where Back to the Future was made? You mean where, like, no, I'm pretty good over here. Because every day, Native people got to get on golf carts and drive through the lot and occupy those spaces. And so for me, I feel like that is where I come alive, and that is where I like am of service. And so that's really what I'm trying to chase. But when I'm there, I want that to feel like a Native space. I want the Native people working there to feel comfortable and safe to do what they do. And I want it to feel fair, and I want us to like, to get the things we never got. And so that's sort of where I come at when I'm making stuff.
Yeah. Drop that mic. Michelle, you want to take us home?
Sure. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much to our honored guests for being here. And thank you to Kimberly and to Gretchen Potter for making this possible, doing all the legwork to organize this amazing thing. Thank you for the strike so that we are able to have you here.
And I just want to say thank you all for taking time out of your day to come and hang out with us, and thank you to Kimberly and all the organizers for making this happen. I know it takes a lot of work and planning, so thank you so much for coming.